Okay, so you know how this morning I told you guys I understood the outrage throughout the mainstream media when it came to the comments from Bob Huggins? You know how I said it was one of those rare instances where I kind of agreed with deacons at Woke United Methodist, how I understood the outrage. I didn't call it fake outrage. You guys remember that? If you missed the video from earlier this morning, I encourage you to go check it out. Obviously, you should never miss one of my videos. Mainstream media coverage of Bob Huggins. It was about as fair as we can expect at this point from the media. Now, there were some faults, there was some over-exaggerated outrage, but for the most part, media coverage, at least what I saw, media coverage of Bob Huggins was fair, at least in terms of media standards that we've come to expect. But you just knew. We could not go a full 24 hours without deacons at Woke United Methodist taking an innocent off-the-cuff joke and turning it into a case of mythical racism, turning it into another case of fake outrage. They could not even wait 2 hours after I was actually somewhat complimentary of the media. 2 hours after I actually agreed with their sentiment regarding Bob Huggins. They turn around and once again prove they really are a group of shit fucks. I say all the time, I actually said it again this morning, this is not an agenda-driven channel. I find stories that I think you guys will find interesting. I give you my perspective on it, my thoughts and opinions. Oftentimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree. But I don't view things through the lens of left and right. I don't view situations through the lens of white and black. I look at everything through the lens of logic and common sense. It's the exact opposite in the mainstream media. The media is 100% agenda-driven. The only thing that matters is the narrative. Besides the normalization of the transgender lifestyle, what is the other major narrative being pushed by the mainstream media? America is a country infected with systemic racism. No, America is a country in the middle of fighting off a terminal infection of the woke fungus. The media narrative is white people are born into inherent racism. More specifically, the evil white man doesn't like black people. One of the biggest promoters of this false narrative is headquartered in Bristol, Connecticut. They call themselves the worldwide leader in sports, better known here on the channel as the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. You know the supply of mythical racism is running low when we can't even make it through an episode of SportsCenter without someone being accused of violating the first woke commandment. One of the things that made SportsCenter special, made it great in the 90s during the Dan Patrick, Keith Olbermann era, Stuart Scott, he was really good about this too. But one of the things that made SportsCenter great during that time period was the impromptu joking. They would sometimes joke about players, they would joke about coaches, bad plays, team names. Nothing was really off limits. Now, there was nothing malicious about it, it was all good fun. But it made the show entertaining. It was a hell of a lot better than listening to some unentertaining sphincter reading out the box scores on local radio. That type of lighthearted banter, it is no longer acceptable. It's no bueno. In a woke, civilized, modern society, jokes of any kind are not allowed, unless, of course, you're making jokes about white Christian nationalists. In that case, we will all share a good fake laugh and tag team the woke wiener. John Anderson has been hosting SportsCenter since the late 90s, 1999, I believe. He comes from the golden era of ESPN. You know, when ESPN was a sports network instead of a propaganda machine for woke you. Last night, John Anderson, he was behind the desk on SportsCenter. They were covering the NHL playoffs, showing highlights from Game 3 between the Knights and the Oilers. A player by the name of Zach Whitecloud scored a goal in the second period. In an effort to be funny and entertaining, John Anderson made a harmless joke about his last name. Watch it for yourself.
Goal of the game, Knights 2-1. 13 minutes to go, we're in the second. Zach Whitecloud. What kind of name is Whitecloud? Great name for your toilet paper.
Pretty harmless, right? I mean, some of you guys may find it funny, some may not. I mean, I don't think John Anderson is signing up for the Kings of Comedy tour anytime soon. Wasn't the best joke I've ever heard, but it gave me a slight chuckle. I can tell you one thing, I wasn't emotionally triggered after I heard that clip. It didn't send me into a state of emotional convulsions. It didn't cause me to pick up my phone, pretending to be offended, and express my fake outrage on Twitter. Can't say the same for the shitfucks in the mainstream media, though. No! This is another situation that perfectly fits the narrative. You have all the ingredients here to make the perfect woke smoothie. Evil white man, check. Fake victim belonging to a marginalized group, check. The only ingredient missing to complete the hat trick and make this the ultimate woke smoothie would be if Zach Whitecloud chose to identify as a non-binary black male birthing person. Who knows? Maybe he will come out publicly and choose this identification to help the wanker spankers reach climax. Now you may be wondering, KC, Zach Whitecloud, he looks like a white guy. How is he a victim? White men are usually the ultimate violators. I'll explain how the media turned Zach Whitecloud into the victim here in just a second. First, let's get into some of the fake outrage in the mainstream media. Headline at Woke Illustrated: John Anderson apologizes for insensitive comment. There's that word again. Sensitive. Ooh, I love being sensitive. To hell with toxic masculinity. I like my men soft and sensitive, but hard in all the right places. Headline at God-Awful Announcing: John Anderson apologizes for controversial joke. Controversial joke? This is what we're now considering a controversial joke? I hope these people never watch a Chris Rock comedy special from the 90s. I hope they never watch old tapes of Richard Pryor or Dave Chappelle. This is tame by comparison. And who is making this controversial? Who is trying to crucify John Anderson? Are normal people outraged by this? Are normal people pretending to be offended? Is Zach Whitecloud himself spreading the fake outrage? No, and no. Matter of fact, John Anderson reached out personally to Zach Whitecloud and apologized for his remarks. Zach Whitecloud accepted his apology, said he understood that people make mistakes, and moved on. Now, the media, they are reporting that Zach Whitecloud broke down in tears at this press conference. I find that incredibly hard to believe. I mean, seriously, if a grown man is breaking down in tears over this, that is a you problem. But I don't believe it. I tried to find video footage of Zach Whitecloud breaking down in tears. This was supposedly at a press conference. Last I checked, most media members, they film their interactions with players, but it's strange. I could not find one video clip of Zach Whitecloud crying. It was originally reported by Woke Illustrated, meaning, more than likely, it's probably 100% bullshit. Now, the reason the media is treating Zach Whitecloud like a victim, he is the first indigenous NHL player from the Sioux Valley Dakota Nation. I'm not sure if indigenous is the proper term here. I get so confused with what's acceptable and unacceptable. According to some of my friends in Cleveland, I believe the proper term would be guardians. But anyway, that is the reason John Anderson has been charged and convicted of violating the woke commandments. Like I tell you guys all the time, in cases like this, I like to look past the commentary and focus on the intent. Was John Anderson being malicious? No. Was he trying to offend a group of people? No. Hell, was he trying to offend Zach Whitecloud? No! This is how dudes communicate. We make jokes about each other. It's nothing personal. But in this sensitive climate today, the media tries to make everything personal. The media is claiming John Anderson should have known the background of Zach Whitecloud. That's a pretty high expectation. Well, Casey, no, it's not. His job is to cover athletes. He should know the background of every single player on every single team in every single sports league. Let me ask you something. How many people had heard of Zach Whitecloud before this afternoon? John Anderson made this joke last night on SportsCenter. This story didn't really hit the mainstream news cycle until 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon. Damn near 24 hours had passed before anyone knew of Zach Whitecloud's background. And the only reason it came out was because 1 or 2 people pointed it out on social media. So, how can we expect John Anderson, working on live television, how can we expect him to know it? Do you know Justin Herbert's background? Do you know Brandon Ingram's background? Do you know Jordan Poole's background? Zion Williamson, Trae Young, Connor McDavid? Are you getting the point? It is unrealistic to expect someone to know the background of every player, especially some unknown player in the NHL. In terms of mainstream appeal, the NHL is just not a popular league. I would be willing to bet most people working in sports media, they could not name 5 players in the National Hockey League. But let's take it a step further. If Zach Whitecloud were 100% Caucasian, do you think there's any fake outrage to this joke in the mainstream media? If he identified as African American, there would be no need for fake outrage. ESPN would have given him a complimentary first-class ticket on Cucumber Airways. Cucumber Airways, come ride on top of us. But seriously though, if Zach Whitecloud were a white guy, would there be any fake outrage? In response to the backlash from emotional men, John Anderson violated the golden rule here on the channel. You guys know the golden rule, you remember, right? Never, ever apologize to the shit fucks. I understand John Anderson reaching out to Zach Whitecloud to apologize. I get it. I don't understand him issuing a public apology, apologizing to all of the sensitive men that I offended. The sensitivity is at an all-time high right now. We have people who identify as men pretending to be offended over harmless jokes. The dude made a joke about someone's last name, and you would think he was the head of a drug cartel. I don't understand it. Maybe you can explain it to me. Take the ethnicity out of the equation here. You tell me why this joke was so offensive. Do you think ESPN forced John Anderson to apologize? If I were betting on this action, all of my money would be on yes. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, kc_btl84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.